I am super excited about today because I get to, rant on education. Ugh. And let me tell you, education is real fun to rant about, as you've probably seen by everyone who talks about how screwed up the American education system is. Oh my goodness. So we're going to talk specifically about a tactic that I think would change how we develop education and the outcomes that we would get, or otherwise known as a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And you've probably never heard of it because guess what? Nobody's talking about it. Okay, so I'm gonna get into it. Thanks for joining me, Naps. Excuse the glare on my glasses, because there's not much that I can do about it right now. As always, I am not a professional. So, anything that I've learned is internet resources. It's all gonna be down there. For this, I specifically watched a little TEDx talk that I thought was really informative, and I looked up a couple articles that people had written over a book that the TEDx talker had written. So her name is Carol Dweck. It's pronounced Dweck, but spelled Dweck. Carol Dweck is a female. Okay, awesome. I love when I actually find out about psychologists that are females because, I never find out about them, ever. So this is exciting. She's an American psychologist, and she's a professor at Stanford. So she's up there getting educated and doing all the research and stuff. Now, she's not the most high-energy person when watching her TED Talk, but don't let that stop you from getting the information from her because it is really fascinating stuff. So a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset is the basis of her, research and development and how people's mindset changes the way they interact with the world around them. Specifically, she self-describes her work as bridging developmental psychology, social psychology, and personality psychology to examine the mindsets people use to structure the self and guide behavior. She wrote a book. I believe it's called The New Mindset of Psychology of Success. I might not be getting that title right. It's going to be over there. It's basically believing you can improve, believing in the power of not yet. So she was talking in her little TEDx talk about this one school, I think it was in Detroit, that had a thing where if you failed a class, you didn't get a failing grade like an F, you got a not yet, which means that there is the potential that you're gonna succeed. Getting that not yet isn't a hard and fast, I'm sorry, you just suck at that, there's no way to fix it. That's gonna bring me to my first problem that I have with the American education system right now. We are in such a fixed mindset when it comes to the way growth is done. Even looking at the idea of growth education is done. You take a test at the beginning of the year and you get 10 out of 100 right. Okay, cool. And then at the end of the year, you take it again and maybe you get 80 out of 100 right. So you have growth, right? But the kids who came in knowing more in that area did higher on the test, so they didn't have as much room to grow. So measuring success in that way, along with it being one test that you've taken and the possibility that you could not do well on those tests because maybe you have test anxiety. That type of growth isn't really true growth mindset because it is just taking some certain fixed knowledge. It is not taking the process to get there into account. It's not taking into account any of the other steps that help develop our brains to problem solve and get over hurdles. And I think that's what we really need in order to push our education system to a pathway that we can then utilize more in American society. I mean, right now we're facing really difficult times. It's graduation season. So many kids haven't been in school for a couple of months now, and they've been trying to do online classes. Online education doesn't work for everyone. That is why you have the option for in-person classes or online classes at a college. I personally would have a very difficult time learning on an online-only class. Even though some online classes structure things differently, I don't do well learning through a computer. I learn a lot through body language practicing and how other people learn around me, which is types of intelligence, different subject area, not on that right now. But the point is that a lot of these kids who were in strictly in-person classes for all of their educational career are now being forced to do online classes, which is a huge shift. And so you have so many kids who are most likely not going to do well in those classes because they've had to completely change how they're learning. And the school system we have so far is not set up to be successful for those people. It is not meant to tell you, oh, if you can't learn this way, try coming up with a different way. No, it tells you if you can't learn this way that you're stupid, and that's just not true. We live in a society that keeps trying to push a fixed mindset on us, but in the workplace keeps asking us for a growth mindset where we're pushing boundaries, we're trying to solve problems on our own, and we are not in constant need of validation. But why does school constantly push that if our workplace does not reflect that? I could go on about education forever, trust me. But we're gonna try and talk about growth mindset, how to develop that, and how to kind of get things together to hopefully push through those educational issues. So with a fixed mindset, when you get to a boundary that is hard to cross, so a problem that you can't figure out, or somebody telling you no, it's like a full stop. It's failure in your mind. You just didn't meet it. You didn't meet the goal. And so it makes you feel inadequate, which sucks. Now, looking at it with a growth mindset, or like the not yet mindset, the failure is not really a failure. It's just you're not ready yet to meet this goal. You're not ready yet to meet this boundary. Some people could say that's being stubborn. Yes. There are always limits where if something isn't working, we need to try from a different angle. And I think that's different than going at the same thing repeatedly, hoping for a different response, aka the definition of insanity, right? Growth mindset isn't doing the same exact process to get a different answer. A growth mindset is changing the process to get a different answer, which makes a lot more sense because you would think going at it from a different angle could give you a different trajectory, could lead you to a success where you saw a failure before. If you look at like the BA test kitchen and how Claire does her pastry chef makes Skittles or Twinkies or Twix. If we look at those examples, Claire oftentimes has major roadblocks that she gets into that are really difficult for her to get over. A really good example is her trying to make Jelly Belly jelly beans. Spoiler alert to anyone who hasn't seen that. Now, she spent like 6 days on this jelly bean recipe. She got to the end, she was like really pushing through with her way that she had been doing it the entire time. And she'd been making small adjustments throughout, but she was trying her best not to scrap all her work. In her mind, that meant that her work was useless. Day 6 came around, she was able to start over and do all the work of days 1 through 5 better because she had been through that work and actually come out with a really cool product at the end, which is really important in a growth mindset. We go to places that we never would have gone to. We find out solutions that we never would have thought would have worked if we had just gotten it right the first time. Fun fact, NASA will not hire you if you only have successes. They want to see people who have hit failure and bounced back from it, because a lot of being an astronaut is problem solving, is figuring out, I don't know the answer to this, but I'm gonna figure it out, because you don't necessarily have the resources around there just to say, screw it, somebody else will do it. Or maybe they won't notice because somebody else will fail harder, which is another aspect of fixed mindset, which happens a lot. People get frustrated, people get fed up. People, when they constantly get stomped down on, when they're constantly told they're not good enough, they start to think they're not good enough. But that's not true. You are good enough. You just also need to work on the tools that you have to grow your abilities instead of just sitting where you are and hoping that those abilities will get you by forever. You grow with practice. When you fail, you start to learn different ways to do it. The way that American school, I should say, is structured is that it doesn't really want you to explore different processes. Why does it matter if you start here, you go there, and then you do that, or if you start at a different point? You get the same outcome by doing a different process sometimes. Math is like the touchy subject right now. because there is all of this lovely new problem solving that is being added into math classes. And parents are confused because the way that they were taught it is a lot simpler than the way that kids are being taught now. And especially for parents who have to then help their kids with homework, it's completely a foreign language to them. The thing is, both processes will get you to the right answer. They're just different ways of thinking about it. Now, when you know both processes, it helps you decide which one works better for you, which one makes more sense to the way your brain works, and then can take you from having this level of math knowledge to this level. Understanding that hundreds and tens and units are all like their own thing and can be separated, and that 10 is 5 plus 5, or 2 plus 8, or 3 plus 7 is really helpful when it comes to breaking down complex problems later, especially if you have to do something quickly and you're having a hard time grasping. I don't know about you, but 7s and 8s, whenever I was multiplying, were always just problematic. So I would go up to like, okay, what's 6 times 7? And then I'd be able to go up to like 9. So I would only really have to do 6 times 7 plus 7 to get to 7 times 7. That's just the way my brain worked. Now, that's not always looked at happily in the American education system. The teachers, or the way that the school is structured, or the way that the curriculum is structured by the county, it really differs from place to place as to who you want to put the blame on. But usually they want you to do the specific process that you're being taught. They want you to get it right that way, and then they want you to teach you a different one, instead of saying, okay, let's look through the ones that work for you, and then build your knowledge so that you have diversification around that. Because once you have a strong base, once you have that foundation, you can then start to spring offshoots here and there to get other places. Writing doesn't happen in a day. Walking doesn't happen in a day. Building the Empire State Building doesn't happen in a day. The famous thing is like Einstein failed making the light bulb 99 times, but on the 100th time he did it, and he learned 99 ways not to make a light bulb. A bunch of kids with a fixed mindset, that they'd been tested to find they had a fixed mindset, were asked what they would do if they failed a test, like what they would do for next time. And there were a ton of kids who said that they would cheat. There were a ton of kids who said that they would look for somebody else to blame, instead of trying to work on the areas that they needed to improve more, because they saw that one test as a failure, as their abilities weren't up to snuff. So why would their abilities ever be up to snuff? And we know that the brain is a plastic thing. It grows and it changes, and all of those little neurons, all of those little like things in our brain that talk to each other, they can create new pathways to talk with other parts of the brain that haven't been talked to previously. It used to be we thought that the brain stopped growing after a certain time, and so once you got to a certain point, you were done. That's not true. We have figured out that your brain is constantly willing to grow and change. It can get harder as you get older, but I think that's also because the older we get, the more out of practice we get with trying new things. So if we want to make sure that our brains last and make sure that our growth mindset maintains, we gotta keep growing it. In order for a garden bed to flourish, you gotta water it, you gotta feed it, you gotta make sure it's getting enough sunlight or enough shade. This last one about education might cause some people to get in a little bit of a tizzy, but I personally disagree with tracking students. Tracking students meaning putting them in a specific level based on their ability. This is a fixed mindset. So if your student isn't good in reading, they're in the standard class or the special education class or the honors class or the AP or the IB class. I didn't have those in school, but I know they existed. Putting that student in that track means that they don't ever learn anything in the track above them. So when you have a standard student going into standard classes, they're not going to know the same stuff that the IB students, the AP students, or the honors students knew. So how do you expect them to get out of that situation and better themselves? That's why I think that tracking sucks. I mean, it would make more sense if you had a class that all the students could learn the honors, the AP, the IB stuff, and then they just take the test. You have to take the test to get the credit anyway. So why not just take the separate class aspect away from it, start incorporating students together to help each other get to the top. One of the measures of like supreme knowledge in a subject is being able to convey that knowledge to others and teach them as well. People come up with better questions for other people than tests ever will. Sometimes somebody asks a question and your brain just doesn't connect that way. You've never thought of that as an option before somebody has said that. That person saying that then gives you perspective on how they think, which helps you understand that you are not the only one in the universe, that your thought process is not the only way to do things. So we need to kick education in the butt. We need to bring it into the 21st century and start getting out of these antiquated systems that keep putting us in a fixed mindset and not preparing us for the growth mindset of the real world after education. Individuals who have visual impairments or who are deaf or who have amputations and can't use certain limbs, they all have different ways of doing things around that disability. And it's really, really cool, some of the solutions that people come up with and some of the creativity that people have for doing things. There are people out there without arms who can use their feet to drive and write with a pencil. And people with hands might be thinking that's crazy, but like, it's their way of adapting to the situation that they were given. Just because you don't do something the same way as somebody else doesn't mean you're a failure. We are all humans on the planet. We need to work together to make sure that we are pushing each other up and finding the most efficient ways forward. Thank you so much for coming onto my channel and watching me. I hope that you have a great day. I will see you here next Thursday. I post videos every Thursday. My name is Jocelyn, by the way. Should have said that at the beginning. Like this video, comment on this video about American education system, other ways that you would improve the education system, because I think all of us understand that there needs to be improvement. Keep a growth mindset when we're commenting on things. Just because it sucks doesn't mean we can't make it better, but if we don't offer solutions and offer ways out, we won't get anywhere. So, comment nice things, subscribe if you want, and then hit the notification bell to receive notifications of when I post, because I'm a small YouTuber and YouTube doesn't always make you look at my stuff. So yeah. Alright guys, I hope you naps, aka not a professionals, have a great day. I'm gonna try and do my best at home in quarantine, and congratulations class of 2020, whatever age you are, whatever thing you're graduating from. It's been a tough year. You got here anyway, so congrats guys.